You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop.
Alright, kicking things off with a personal favorite. It's messy, it's weird, and it sets the tone real fast. Story 1. Don't blink.
Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but an eerie aura always seemed to follow her. Whatever house we moved to, her room was the coldest. We could hear her laughing like someone was talking to her, about the only response she can give to us, and the worst one to admit is I was scared of her. I'd have terrible nightmares that I would go to her room in the middle of the night and someone was whispering to her, leaning over her bed while she giggled. In another one I'd go to check on her and she'd be floating in the air, pitch black eyes just staring at me like she could see me clear as day. As if she wasn't mostly blind. Those always scared me, and I grew into the habit of sticking my hand in the door and flicking on the light before I'd even peek into her room. I woke up yesterday morning and my mom, her usual caretaker, had already gotten her up. I made myself breakfast and headed off to my internship. It had been a long day working for a grassroots organization, and by the time I'd got home I was beat. I pulled the steaming bag out of the microwave and began to walk back from the kitchen to the living room. That's when I heard it. It sounded like a faint whisper was coming from Melissa's room. My heart grew in pace and I grabbed the TV remote to turn it down, as that's what I thought the source of the whispering was. It couldn't be anything else. As I turned down the volume, I could hear the whispering still, just a little more loud and clear. The green drapes my mom used to add a pop in our living room seemed to be drained of their color. Everything did. I was frozen in terror, but I kept telling myself I needed to check her because someone is in my house, or B. I didn't want to think about B. It honestly seemed worse than A at the moment. I don't know how this could be possible. What did she mean behind me? How can someone who hasn't spoke for 25 years or have learned a language at all, just gain speak? Any answers would be appreciated. Anything. Part 2, my mute sister spoke for the first time last night. PT2.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
My wife didn't want me to go into the bedroom, by right now. Hi r/nah sleep. I haven't been able to sleep for a while. Sometimes I stay up late. I love my wife, so much. So much. But, sometimes I stay up late. My wife goes to bed, and I stay up. Redditing or playing video games, or watching TV. I wondered if she might have had a dream that I died or something, or if maybe she'd received a text with some tragic news. Finally, when she calmed down a little, she said, "Let's just sit together for a while." "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I asked. She seemed to think about it, and decide against it. "No. I just want to spend some time with you, for a little while." We wound up sitting on the couch chatting. About anything and everything under the sun, except for what had upset her. We played Portal. My body is in there. I'm dead, Prakash. I saw my dead body, lying on the bed. Once you see it, it'll be over. This was a bit much. Obviously she'd had some nightmare, that she believed was real. "Oh, sweetheart, no. No. It was just a bad dream. Everything is okay." I hugged her as she sobbed. "Look, you're just sleep deprived. You'll feel better when you wake up. I promise." Of course I called 911. She was only 27 years old. An aneurysm in her sleep. The coroner said she'd been dead for 5 or 6 hours before I found her body.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
I accepted the deal. My first 6 months in G2 were fine, bordering on boring. There were 32 of us in the block and we all had the same daily routine: wake up, shower, breakfast, free time, yard time, experiments in either group A or B, rotated weekly, dinner, free time, lights out. There were occasional variations. Every now and then, there would be morning experiments or even doubles, but usually, it was a 3-hour block in the afternoons. We all had single cells, the food was edible, at least, and they even let me have a little TV after my first month. All in all, it could have been worse. The experiments that I participated in were mostly harmless. Medications, usually. The lab coat folks in G2 would have me pop pills or take injections or swallow a kaleidoscope of liquids, then we'd all just wait to see what happened. The testing rooms were comfortable if bland. I'd sit in a white chair, next to a white table, surrounded by white walls. I knew the drug was supposed to be intense if they strapped me in, but 4 out of 5 times, they didn't bother with restraints. I experienced quite a few rashes, headaches, blurry vision, blood coming out of all orifices, excessive sneezing, that kind of stuff. Much worse than the pharmaceutical tests, though, were the psychological experiments. Electroshock therapy was a miserable experience. The sensory deprivation tank was worse. They left me floating in a completely silent, black, empty space for 48 hours. By the time the doctors pulled me out, I'd scratched up the sides of the tank to the point my fingernails were popping off. But nothing was like the signal and all of the death that came after. I waited until they gave me a signal from the intercom, then I tapped the device. The rod with the circular cap began to rock back and forth horizontally. It reminded me of piano practice when I was a kid, the metronome gently swaying and providing a pace. But this felt different. For one thing, the device was silent. There was no telltale tick-tick-tick like a true metronome. For another, the rod wasn't moving evenly. It jerked and stuttered like a puppet with uneven strings. I thought they'd take me back to my cell, but, instead, they took me into a large holding cell already full of other prisoners. It was the rest of G2 block. 32 of us total in one big cage. I backed into a corner and called out for help. Not everyone in the cage was going crazy, but those who were seemed nearly possessed. It might have been the adrenaline warping my perception, but some of the prisoners were changing. Growing bigger. Nastier. Swelling. One of the biggest of the bunch grabbed 2 bars and pulled. To my absolute stupefaction, the metal screeched and gave way, creating a hole the size of manhole cover. The giant tried climbing through but didn't fit. He roared and turned his attention to ripping one of the benches from its bolts. The big man stalked off through the destroyed door and I followed. For some reason, he ignored me. Maybe he didn't think I was worth his attention. I didn't care, and I wasn't confident the other 5 or 6 creatures back in the cell would be so accommodating. The red lights were still flashing in the hallway and the sirens still sounded. I figured the big guy could punch us right out of the lockdown. I figured wrong. We hadn't gone more than a dozen yards into the hall before gas began to pump out through the vents. I woke up in the prison infirmary. Physically, they told me I was fine. When I asked what happened, they said the experiment ended up causing mass hallucinations. Some prisoners got hurt in the confusion, but nothing serious. And hey, turns out it was my lucky day. They decided I'd served my time and I was eligible for immediate release. Only thing was, I had to sign a bunch of papers agreeing to stay silent about G2 block. One peep out of me and they promised I'd be back for my full sentence with time tacked on for good measure. I asked if I could see some of the other guys from G2. They said no. I signed the papers and left, but I kept an eye out for what I knew was coming. Sure enough, obituaries began to trickle out over the next year, obituaries for the men I saw die that day in the cell. Most of the posts were short and I had to find them. That's the thing about the prisoners in G2 block, we were specifically picked because we wouldn't be missed. There wouldn't be too many questions. I knew that my parole was about the world's cheapest bribe. And I know that they're still watching me. But I have to put this out there, I have to leave some record of what happened. Because that ringing in my ears after the test. It never went away. It's only gotten worse. My theory is that the signal is an infection that spreads faster in some people than others. But that's how I feel. Angry.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Today I turned 162 years old. And there's no sign of stopping, by Leo da Vinci. I was wrong. And I found that out on the day my wife died, in 1947. We'd both exceeded our life expectancies, until one winter morning her body grew cold next to me, her breathing stilled, the light in her eyes extinguished. From the back of her gray hair, I could almost pretend she was still alive. And for an hour I did, my eyes welling up in tears as I realized that without her, my life was no longer worth living. Raising the gun to my temple, I felt no hesitation. I was done here on earth, finished. My purpose complete, and with the failing of my physical and slowing of my mental facilities, I'd prefer to die than deteriorate. I was almost excited to pull the trigger. And when I did, I was met with only one sound. I frowned, checking the cylinder to make sure each of the slots had a bullet. A dud, I thought, and raised the gun again. And once more I pulled the trigger. Click. Click, 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 one for each of the bullets, all of them failing their duty. Jumping off a bridge onto concrete yielded broken bones, but no death. Drowning only resulted in me awakening face up and sputtering on the shoreline. Suffocating myself always ended in an unexpected leak where fresh air was able to enter, and revive my starving cells. That because I'm only conscious in the universes where I'm alive, none of the other universes mattered. That they collapsed somehow, that they didn't matter. Though I don't quite understand it, he assured me that this theory, quantum immortality, could be very real. And with my age as proof, that it is real. And you can't escape. Reported by Leo, an acquaintance of this man's caretaker, whose name shall remain unmentioned at his request for privacy. For 12 more reports from Leo of the supernatural and sinister, click here, they are free, because the world needs to know.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun, and... nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
I lost myself while she gained world renown for her art, riches beyond her wildest belief, her perfect subject always at arm's reach. The constant manipulation and guilting worked until it didn't. I left home as young as I possibly could, but found myself wildly unprepared and ill-equipped to enter a world that felt so foreign, so alien to me. Everything was in constant motion. All of its moving parts blurred together to give me double vision, making me dizzy, lightheaded. I found work in modeling, believing my appearance to be the only value I had to offer. I celebrated initial success in the industry, made my way up the ladder from catalog spreads to high fashion shoots and runway couture. It was in hair and makeup for one of these shows when I noticed the first sign of deterioration. I leaned forward into the mirror, so close that the tip of my nose grazed the cool surface, to examine the crow's feet that had sprouted along the corners of my eyes. I tried frantically to rub the lines away, pinched them between panicked fingers to pluck them right off my face, but there was no denying it. Throughout the night, even only over those few hours, lines, age spots, wrinkles cropped up across my face. The undersides of my eyes darkened, began to swell with puffy bags. Terrified, I cancelled all my appointments, locked myself away in my apartment. My condition only worsened over the following week. Wrinkles in my face deepened, my eyes grew dull. The skin on my neck and upper arms started to sag and droop, the skin fragile to the touch. Gray hairs grew in at an alarming rate until they overtook the bright blonde hair that should have been there. It only took 2 weeks for me to age into a weary elderly woman. My joints ached and groaned with every movement, my vision rapidly decayed. I hunched forward at the shoulders, couldn't straighten my back even if I subjected myself to the pain of trying. I felt feeble, exhausted, drained, old. I was only 20 years old, but I looked nearly 90. That's when Mother called. In my fear and confusion, I found myself thankful for familiar contact. Any warmth I momentarily held within me evaporated as soon as she spoke, immediately replaced by stone, by ice. Mommy's finally back on her feet. Took her a long time to get over losing you, it certainly did, but she's got an installation coming up. Wouldn't you come sit for Mommy, one last time? I let myself into the old house the next morning, calling out for Mother but received no response. I walked through the entryway, down the long hallway toward her bedroom. The walls were covered with pictures, portraits of me, the me I never knew, a life I never lived. But these were new, painted from memory, undeniably beautiful yet imperfect without her muse to replicate on stretches of canvas. I gently nudged her bedroom door open, then nearly toppled backwards at the sight of the room. All 4 walls were lined top to bottom with clippings from catalogs, from fashion magazines. All of her makeshift wallpaper featured me, printed photos from my career, from the very first shoot to the very last. My stomach turned as I craned my weak neck up to the ceiling where she'd pasted overlapping newspaper pages, each one the same, page 8, dated 20 years back. The words glared down at me in a menacing repetition. Town's most beautiful baby born today, town's most beautiful baby born today, town's most beautiful baby born today, town's most. I woke up to the most horrifying scene I could possibly imagine, my worst nightmare, the one I'd lived through time and time again, back once more, only this time, I was shackled at the wrists and ankles. I felt as if I'd been simultaneously catapulted both forward and backward through time, seated on that too small stool in a frail old body. Captured in 3 separate moments, the past, the future, and the dreadful present. Mother perched across from me. From behind her canvas, she twirled her brush in a pastel pink to match the dress she'd crammed me in while I was out, dreaming of anywhere but here. She abandoned the brush for another, dipped it tenderly in a glass of water, carefully applied the paint to its tip. Now sit still for me, sweetheart, we don't want any frivolous movements to muss up your hair. Fragile gray strands fell from my scalp, littering the floor, as she made quick flicks with her thin brush. My darling, how dreary you look. No matter, she breathed, clicking her tongue. My skin grew paper thin, the bones of my hand clearly visible beneath the fragile pallor. With each dramatic brushstroke, my breaths grew shallow, labored, my pulse weaker, slower. Mother brought the tip of her brush to the corner of her lips, deep in thought. Now, what to do about these shackles? If you'd have just come back to Mommy on your own, my little muse, we wouldn't have to worry about them at all. Silly girl, why were you such a slowpoke all of a sudden? No matter, come look at Mommy's painting, her greatest creation yet. With the last of my remaining energy, I tore the paintbrush from her clutches and thrust it straight through her eye socket, puncturing the organ at its center. Mother wailed as I urged it deeper, twisted it, pulled it back out. She fell to the floor, screeching in agony, and I came down with her. A renewed energy flowed through me as I rammed the wooden handle into her other eye, harder this time, until it popped and oozed, blood spattering across the pleats of my ill-fitted dress. 10.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse, in the best way.
I Can't Quite Place When the First Few Stars Started Dying Out, by Crinkly Sock. He slid over 2 sheets of paper. I took a look at the 2 images, both taken from his telescope, and could see that both contained a cluster of bright light in the center. I examined the papers a bit more closely. The pictures were printed in black and white and relatively grainy, but I could still see it. The one labeled May 22 looks a bit dimmer. I responded tentatively, half expecting my dad to start laughing at my incredulous response. Instead, he nodded silently, his gaze lingering upon his plate of untouched food. His response worrying me was an understatement at best. He was never this grave. Sliding me another 2 sheets of paper, I was once again asked to compare the 2. This time, it was 2 pictures both labeled Messier 31, which was a galaxy 2.5 million light-years away from us. The Andromeda, I said, immediately recognizing the celestial body from the countless times I've gazed up at it through the telescope. It looks the same to me, but dash. And then I saw it. Not the galaxy itself, but the surrounding stars in the background. In the older picture, labeled January 22, I could see an array of bright dots speckled throughout the distance. In the more recent one from May, however, I noticed that there was only darkness in the background. I didn't even have to finish my sentence. The silence lingered between my father and I, sharp and clear. My father had discovered something very wrong. I started off trying to find Messier 104, or the Sombrero. I knew the galaxy was located near the borders of the constellations Virgo and Corvus, and I found those with relative ease. But I just couldn't find the Sombrero. It was as if it had been wiped clean off the surface of the night sky. Unnerved, I moved on to the Andromeda, which I easily located near the Great Square of Pegasus. The telescope was nothing fancy, so I couldn't make out any small details with it, but I zoomed in as far as I could and just stared at the little sparkle of light. I counted. 1. It was still there. 2. The stars looked like millions of shards of broken glass. 3. I wondered if those stars had their own solar systems. 4. Were there aliens living on those planets? 5. In horror, I watched as a black cosmic mass quickly engulfed the sphere of twinkling lights. I couldn't describe it. It looked as if darkness itself had gained mass and was now determined to spread to every corner of the universe. Stifling a scream, I fell backwards onto the damp grass behind me. I had seen enough. Without even packing up the telescope, I hopped in my car and started the drive to my dad's workplace. All the researchers here know about it. The government has been informed. Josie, he continued, you know about the Big Crunch theory, right? Kind of. I responded stiffly, terrified yet curious. You built this in the past week? I turned to stare at my dad, incredulous. Ever since I've learned about Einstein's theory of the multiverse, he continued, I've been determined to prove it. I haven't had time to test this out yet, but it's supposed to transport matter into parallel universes through wormholes. By compressing matter into... He stopped suddenly. I watched as he walked up to me and firmly clasped his arms around my shoulders into a hug. The shoulder of my shirt was damp, I realized. He was crying. I'll miss you, Josie. He choked out. Then he let out a weak bark of laughter. Who knew my side project was going to come in use one day? What do you mean? I asked, now starting to tear up myself. Are you going to send me away? Aren't you coming with me? It's too risky. The more matter the machine has to transport, the more unstable it becomes. It's safer if it's just you. You have to live on. You have to warn the others. Who knows if this situation is limited to just our time frame? Before I could protest, he led me to the booth. I love you, Josie. Don't forget me. Those were his last words before he shoved me in and closed the door. I felt everything go dark, and then I was falling. When I woke up, I was in my bed. Except my bed was on the wrong side of the room. And my walls were blue instead of purple. I turned to look around, and spied the window. Quickly, I shot out from under my covers and yanked open my curtains. Sunlight streamed in through the glass. Sunlight. The sun was still here. I heard a knock on my door. Come in, I tentatively responded. As the door opened and the visitor came in, I saw that it was a woman. I immediately recognized her as my mother through my memories, even though I never remembered living through those memories. In my old life, my mother had left us when I was 5.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back out now. Next story's already watching.
I tipped my Uber driver $20, I hope it was enough, by Daver. Last night I was working late, so I took advantage of my company's guaranteed ride home program for overtime works and called an Uber. Normally I don't make chit-chat with my Uber drivers, but it was a 45-minute ride home, and after half an hour in silence the overall oddity of the situation eventually overcame my reluctance. This is a really great car, I tried. I was racking my brain for a follow-up, but everything that popped into my head sounded like I was some kind of stalker. There was another few minutes of silence before I tried again. Actually, originally my husband was an Uber driver. He was a professional driver in China, which was a high-status job, working for government officials and high-profile foreign visitors. When we immigrated here, he got his commercial license and signed up with Uber. He drove Uber Black and only had commercial clients. Business was good, and he bought this car for that. But when Uber got popular, there were more drivers. And then they introduced Uber X. Then anyone could drive. You didn't need a commercial license or anything. You didn't have to be a professional driver at all. That's really tragic. I'm so sorry for your loss. Since his passing, I've taken over for him, driving on his account. I go out of my way to provide the best possible experience. And then, if a passenger still gives me a bad rating or no tip, I remember them. I know where they live or where they work. And later, I make them pay what they did to my husband. I was still processing the full import of this when the car came to a stop in front of my house. Here you go. I hope you had a good trip. As I entered my house, she drove away. My Uber app pinged in my pocket, asking me to rate my driver. My entire body went cold with fear. And number X200B.
You're still tuned to Horror Slop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
I made a dummy account to catch my husband's infidelity, by Elvin Banana. My 28F, husband, 30M, thought he was doing great in hiding his cheating, but I know him too well not to notice. I'm not here for sympathy, I'm here to ask for help. Sometimes, I would find a strand of hair on his coat, or a lipstick in his car, or worse, a wallet. I made no advances, because we were happy. We had the perfect husband-wife relationship, our parents love us both, no family drama, nothing. But, he found out. I had my eyes open when he suddenly came back earlier than usual, 3 a.m. He was usually back by 5 or 6 a.m., so at the time, I was just doing my best to stay awake. It felt like I was the one doing something wrong, like I was the one caught cheating, but he asked for forgiveness. Begged for it, even. He said it would never happen again. He said it was just a fling. So I said okay. We had a serious talk about it, and we both promised to put this behind us. But a few weeks after, I made a dummy account out of my old one he hasn't followed or heard about. I wanted to make it so the account wasn't too new, and posted some pictures I got online. I shouldn't have. Now, I'm hiding in my car, watching as my husband prepares what only seems like a stash of a psychopath. He had everything. Chainsaws. Knives. Daggers. Katanas. But then, by some miracle, some woman walks by and flirts with my husband. She looks exactly like the woman in the pictures, or maybe it was because it was night. As soon as they go, I speed my way to our house. I didn't care about the red lights I passed through, all I wanted was to lie down and sleep and forget. My eyes scanned for a body, only to see it in the kitchen. Took you long enough to catch me, honey. I ran, and I'm hiding in our bedroom. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to feel. I think I'm still in shock. He's knocking. Yes. Remains. While I was having the worst breakdown of my life in our bedroom, he had already put the woman in separate bags. This was a lot to take in, especially because there was not one speck of blood on the floor or the wall. And, well, during the 5 days that I didn't put an update, we were out, hunting. I won't go into further details, but I kind of get why he does it. How it feels. How my blood rushes whenever they try to run, crawl away. Also, to that one person that told the authorities.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
My sister and I were very different people. Amy was going to have a fairy tale themed wedding. She'd managed to find this meadow in the forest near our childhood home that was absolutely breathtaking. Even I had to admit, if the skies remained clear and the weather was warm, this was perfect for her dream wedding. She squealed about how gross it was, and I moved in for pictures. The mushroom was a part of a circle, a phenomena of nature I'd never seen in person. I shrugged. Fairy ring. That's what they're called. Perfect for a fairy tale wedding, eh? My smirk about her disgust was probably a little too evident. No way. They're disgusting. Amy pulled a face. You can just go. It's not like I paid for you to get here or anything. The next day Amy invited me to take pictures of her in her wedding dress, a small photo shoot before the wedding. Naturally I obliged to avoid the fuss if I turned her down. Amy hammed it up for the camera. Puckered her lips, twirled her bangs. She was honestly one of the better models I worked with. She knew how to look good for the camera. Then she yelped as one of her bridesmaids, I think it was Julie, stood by her. Julie, what the hell? Why did you pinch me? She snapped. I shrunk in my seat. I don't know. I put on bug spray today. Julie examined her bare arms, frowning. It doesn't look like bug bites. Look. She stretched out her arms so I could get a better look. "They better or you're not allowed to stand up with me," Amy threatened. Poor Julie's eyes welled up with tears and she buried her face in her hands as she began to sob. I quickly put the car in gear to get the ladies out of there. I took Julie for a few drinks that night after she got out of her bridesmaid gown and iced her arms. The next morning her welts had turned into mottled purple bruises, but I reassured her that they'd be mostly faded by the wedding. "I just bought it. It's a whole gallon of milk and it's ruined." She pitched the gallon of milk into the sink, and the container exploded. Chunky milk poured down the drain and the most awful smell filled the room. I visibly gagged and covered my nose as I hurried to open a window. "It happens, Amy. Listen, let's just have some breakfast, okay? You still take your eggs over easy?" I nodded as I got the eggs out of the fridge and heated up the pan. "It's probably wetting nerves too. Just a few more days and it'll be over." I cracked the egg and dropped it into the pan. What's worse than spoiled milk? Rotten eggs. Amy screamed before she started to gag and threw up in the sink. The egg was horrifying, mottled brown and green and smelled like death. It popped and hissed in the pan before the yolk broke and thick red liquid oozed out. The smell of frying blood was what made me join Amy at the sink, hurling. The day of the wedding arrived and I got a text from Julie. I immediately called her, it went straight to voicemail. I must have called her 10 times before the maid of honor poked her head in and told me to hurry up and get ready. I didn't wear anything flashy, just a pink skirt and green/white blouse. I looked like a spring princess. Amy was the queen. But God, you could feel how exhausted she was. Makeup hid some of the bruising, but I felt pained when I saw her back, rows and rows of black and blue marks. I couldn't imagine how much her body ached. But she was determined. The sooner she got that damn wedding over with, the sooner this would all come to an end. When they kissed, I was grabbed by the back of my shirt and dragged back. Julie looked like hell. The welts on her arms had come back with a vengeance, actually breaking skin and creating horrendous scabbed wounds. In her hands was clutched a pair of scissors and her eyes were filled with madness. When I attempted to pull back, she grasped my hands and shook her head. I glanced out the window. I couldn't see much anymore given as to where we were parked in the forest, but I could see that the women were prepping for the bouquet toss. "Julie, have you lost your mind?" It was harsh, but she looked insane. Julie shook her head again, her eyes growing wet. "My family emigrated from Ireland when I was a little girl. I thought something was familiar about the marks, but I didn't put it together until I took a sip of some of the milk from my fridge and it was bad. I'm so sorry, Alana, I'm so sorry." The single scream turned into a chorus of screaming. I saw wedding guests run from the meadow as the light grew blinding. Their clothes were singed, their faces burned red. I blacked out after that. When I woke up I was in the hospital. Julie was sleeping in the chair next to my bed. I'd gotten first and second-degree burns on all my exposed flesh, but I was lucky. Everyone else on the ground was dead. No one bothered to try to bullshit what I'd seen, that it was a chemical weapon or some gas leak. In the middle of the circle was the pearl necklace I loaned my sister, with the addition of a blue sapphire at the throat.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
People avoided asking me about it, so I never really got to say it out loud. I suppose cancer is a fucking awkward topic, sure to bring down any mood. Instead they just threw pity at me with their eyes and avoided conversation of death and sickness altogether. I spent a year on eggshells. I couldn't understand it when my dad told us he'd met someone new. How had he found the time? We were still being treated like those little orphan kids and he'd managed to date. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit angry. Meanwhile I was stuck with what felt like a grief tumor, attacking every part of my body as aggressively as the one that killed my mom. Along with a pile of university entrance exams, all in the same month. I buried my mother one day and sat advanced mathematics the next. I made it to university. My dad was shocked. I know he expected me to fail. He had the same pity eyes that all the other kids at school did. I was grateful for the fresh start and a chance to flee all those haunting, painful memories, and I took it. Anything to be more than just the girl whose mum died. I weathered the summer, dealing with the grief and the misery in my home, only relieved by Sven's infectious giggles. I was going to miss them regardless of the pain, but still, I packed up my car and moved miles away when September hit. Every visit home I felt the eggshells pricking at my feet. A week here and there, then straight back to my uni bubble, where I could be someone else. The year passed so quickly. As selfish as it may sound, I detested my visits home. But none more than the start of this summer, a year on, when my dad announced his new woman, my mother's replacement. Her name was Ally and she had a 15-year-old daughter named Violet. My dad hadn't planned to tell us so soon, but he was left with no choice when Ally was evicted just before the government lockdown, leaving her and her kid homeless. We learned about our new step-family only 3 hours before they moved into our home. He begged us to give them a chance. Sven, only 6 years old at the time, was on board. I was tougher, but I didn't put up a fight, instead opting for a frosty, unfeeling demeanor. Bitter as I was, Ally was never the problem. Violet was. I knew it the moment they walked through the door. A perpetually sour-faced young girl with something slightly intimidating about her. Where Ally radiated light, Violet was there to suck it up. When she wasn't looking sour, she had a smug grin that she tried to hide by pursing her lips, and she made no effort to converse at all. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. I assumed it was nerves, but by that night she'd proven my reservations correct. I retreated to my room pretty soon after an awkward dinner. Ally had tried to keep the conversation flowing, but none of us were ready to open up yet. You could hear even the faintest clink of a fork hitting a plate. That sounds odd, but it's true. My mum always wore the same perfume. It was distinctive and brought tears to my eyes as it seeped under the gap in the door. It's strange that things like a scent can spark that kind of emotional reaction, but I was a mess. I stumbled out of the room rubbing my eyes and flung open the bathroom door where the smell was coming from. There she was. Her eyes lingered on mine for a moment and she pursed her lips, attempting to conceal another telling smile. After a few seconds of eye contact she dropped the bottle and screamed, as if I'd made her jump. I'm sorry, Taylor still struggles with, you know. I heard my dad say to Ally in the hall, when they thought I was already asleep. Violet had stolen a piece of my mum and made me look insane all in one action. That was only night one. The incidents with Violet continued. It started small, dropping a vase, knocking salt into an almost finished pan of food and overwatering a plant, all sorts of clumsy mishaps. I was studying at the table in the kitchen and Ally had been cooking. She left with a pot of potatoes boiling on the stove and asked me to keep an eye on them while she showered. I didn't think much of it. I watched and adjusted the flame accordingly as the water bubbled and expanded. When Violet entered I barely noticed. I tried to avoid her at all possible cost after the perfume and I wasn't about to stop. I didn't look round, make eye contact or do anything to attract her attention. I listened as she walked to the fridge, opened the door and took a swig of juice, all while still focusing on the potatoes. If I'd have just looked, been more wary, I'd have noticed her turn and seen her lips pursed, hiding the same smug, sinister smile as before. As she turned, she plunged her hand into the pot of boiling water. Then Ally walked in. "Stop, stop, 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 stop." I stood in the corner near catatonic, back to the wall as Ally dialed the ambulance. My new stepmom didn't make eye contact with me, not once, as she tended her spawn on the floor. The 3 minutes the ambulance took felt like a lifetime with me silent in the corner and the smell of death filling every inch of the room. When my dad got home from the store with Sven, I told him what happened. He didn't give me a chance to explain or to try and convince him that Violet was the literal devil. He didn't comfort me, instead he left my 6-year-old brother in my care and fled to the hospital to be with his new family. I wondered if he suspected Violet too. If he thought I did it, then why would he leave me with Sven? But if he thought I didn't do it, then why would he go to her? I waited for police sirens all night, to pick me up for my evil crime. They never came. At the break of dawn, still awake, I watched my dad's car pull into the drive, 2 people in the passenger seats. Ally walked Violet upstairs, bandages up to her elbow and settled her in her room, the old spare. I felt a rush of relief go through my entire body as I communicated with my dad and Ally using nothing but our eyes. I was so incredibly grateful, they were as scared as I was. "This isn't something any doctor can fix, honey. I'm so sorry. We can't talk about this here, let's sit outside." The 3 of us moved to the patio in the back garden, Ally taking special care to ensure every window to the back of the house was closed, terror in her face. I couldn't imagine being scared of my own flesh and blood, but Ally's fear was incomprehensible. "She's done this before, Taylor. I thought we were past this, but I was wrong. I promise I never would have put your family at risk if I'd thought for even 1 second that." "What do you mean, past this? Her hand wasn't fucked up before." "I don't mean that particular stunt, I've never seen her do anything so brazen before. I mean the little things, all those evil malicious actions that you can't quite prove. I've suspected her for a long time, she wasn't the same after her dad died." As grateful as I was that my dad was standing up for us, I could see the sheer, unadulterated horror on Ally's face and I couldn't help but pity her. How many smashed bottles of perfume had she lived through? "She hung herself," Ally replied, facing the ground, somberly. "Did you report her to the police?" "I finally saw what kind of monster she is. They came to question her and I left to make tea, give them a little privacy. I still thought at the time there was a chance I was imagining it." She started to cry softly. I hadn't known her long, but I desperately wanted to give Ally a hug. If it weren't for Violet, she would have been a welcomed addition to the household. My dad placed an arm around her and she continued. "What the fuck, Al? Why didn't you say anything?" My dad was angry, but more worried than anything. I could hear the compassion in his tone. "How are you supposed to admit that you don't think your child's human? We ran. Years passed and nothing else happened, meeting you, moving here. I started to wonder if the whole thing had been a sick nightmare until last night." "Well, it's not a nightmare, so what do we do?" I begged, needing some kind of viable solution to the literal demon lying mere feet from my young brother. I tried to sleep that morning, but all I got was a few broken hours. Every knock, bump and creak in the house had me on edge. I opened my Sven's door and peeked inside more times than I could count. She's tormented me for months. Every time we were alone she made that pursed-lipped smile. She ran her fingers across the cold stove to taunt me, and I'm not sure if it was the trauma or Violet, but every time I was certain I could smell her necrotic, burning flesh. The ever-changing bandages and pus-filled blisters that seeped out the gaps were a constant reminder. If she caught me cringing, she would wink and laugh. There wasn't a thing out of place. Dad's car sat on the drive and the flowers bordered the garden like they always had. The house had always been so pretty. Its quaint exterior hid the evil inside so well. I walked through the hall, past the living room door and to the kitchen in a trance, without even stopping to drop my bags. "Where is everyone?" I asked, trying to stay calm and willing the beads of sweat forming on my face to stop. "You think it's poison, don't you? Would you blame me?" The floor was covered in blood, spattered in artistic patterns along the bottom of cabinets and across every tile. I turned to try and take in more of the house, noting the blood saturating the hallway carpet. I'd been so fixated on the monster I'd stepped straight through it before.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
Negative calorie foods are hitting the shelves soon, do not buy them, by Clarkinator 69. Please, take this seriously. I don't have much time. I need to get this out. I'm telling the truth when I say that these foods are the worst consumer items released since cigarettes. They're probably worse. I may not be the chief creator of these foods, but I played a role in their inception. Look, I never meant for them to be bad. I had a noble goal. Well, if allowing people to binge without fear of weight gain is noble. I definitely had some selfish motivation, my desire to the aforementioned. I've always loved junk food. That led to me getting fat as a teen. I was in denial in high school, but I always knew the truth. After graduating high school, I got my weight under control, losing over 60 pounds. Of course, my love for junk food didn't decline though. I'm sure you're all aware of the zero-calorie items available these days. Diet soda, flavored water, seltzer, coffee, tea, etc. You don't have to fear weight gain when consuming such items. Well, a negative calorie food takes it a step further. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a good that requires more energy to digest than it provides. A food that will induce caloric deficit through consumption. I played no role in the actual creation. But I pitched the idea, and I helped oversee the testing. As you may have expected, we used lab rats for the initial tests. We have them negative calorie cheese. It sure is a good thing we didn't sample this batch with humans. Simply put, the cheese was too effective. The rats wasted away and starved. We only gave them a little bit, but it negated the rest of their diet. Success on rats doesn't mean everything though, and it certainly didn't mean success with all food types. This is where it gets ugly. A few months after this breakthrough, we completed a test batch of negative calorie calls and chocolate. We gave these items the brand name Delight. That goal succeeded, but damn it, we failed elsewhere. Seems engineering the sugars in candy is harder. But it wasn't just B.E. was also affected, albeit differently. The candy fucked up her metabolism, and badly. She needs so much food to stay the same weight. She needed about 6,000 calories a day just to stay the same. But her fate wasn't the worst. I need to get back to B. B's addiction and withdrawal continued, and he grew extremely violent. He killed A. He strangled him to death and ripped open his torso, trying to get the candy from his stomach. He was shot dead by security. I'm not sure how corporate handled that. I don't want to know. They used some resource you and I are probably too moral to imagine to make that go away. Those two were lucky, I guess. But it seems these products cause addiction/homicidal violence/health problems. It doesn't make you fat, but there are worse things than that. I know that now.
That last one, Tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite serves. Hope you're hungry.
My Husband Dies Every Night at 7:48 p.m. by Robert Mort. We were arguing. He'd been checking out the waitress at dinner, and while that wasn't something I should have picked a fight over, it was our anniversary dinner. I couldn't stop a few snarky comments from slipping out. He took a few steps back. He slipped. And then fell onto the tracks below. The roar of the train. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The blinding lights. The blaring horn. The metal flashed past, and I knew it was all over. The police took my statement. Then I flopped down on the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the cars roll by. The soft tinkle of our wind chimes. The clatter of the dry branches in the wind. Happy anniversary, babe. Backslash backslash backslash. I assumed it was a dream. Somehow. It was the only way I could justify what happened. A horrible nightmare that I thought I'd never escape from, but did. So our reservation at Poulet is at 6. Cancel it, I said. What? John took a bite of the chicken. So Dan says, he needs me to finish it in an hour, or I'm fired. And I say. His hand shot up to his neck. Oh, God, he was choking. Nothing. He slipped from my hands and fell onto the floor, skin white, eyes wide. Behind him, hanging on the wall, was our clock. 7:48 p.m. The next morning, I woke up to him beside me. Happy anniversary, babe. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand. Checked the date. February 16, 2022. I slapped the phone back down. Excited for tonight? No. No, I'm really not. What? Well, we can do that tomorrow. He shrugged. Okay. You feeling all right? It's some sort of nervous breakdown. A reaction to stress. Nightmares, hallucinations, whatever they were. It wasn't possible that I was living in some sort of perverted Groundhog Day. It just wasn't. My Aunt Teresa had struggled with vivid hallucinations of demons and angels and death. I must have inherited it from her. At 7:40, I accidentally locked John in the bathroom. Hey. Isabel. Can you hear me? His muffled voice filtered downstairs. I accidentally locked myself in the bathroom. The bathrooms had a shitty latch since forever. I never thought it would actually come in handy. I set John's fancy skillet on the stove. Oil bubbled and fizzled above the flame. I hummed to myself as I set down patties of ground beef, watching them shrink and darken. Sorry, John, I thought to myself. This is for your own good. Isabel. I slid the spatula under the patties. One by one, I carefully flipped them over. They sizzled delightfully. I turned to the fridge and swung the door open. John. I shouted. Oh God, oh God. Backslash backslash backslash. John, we need to talk. I slipped my phone back on the nightstand, the screen glowing with the words February 16, 2022. There's, been something happening to me. He frowned. I don't understand. At first I thought they were all nightmares. Really vivid ones. Then I thought I was hallucinating, like Aunt Teresa, because how could this be true? How could I be living the same day, over and over and over? But it all feels so real. I've been losing you, every night, for the past 3 days. I can't take it anymore, I said, my voice starting to crack. I can't keep watching you die, John. Whether it's real or fake. So I need to get help, or something, because I don't know what to do. John didn't reply. He just kept his dark eyes on mine, his warm hands on my hands. John. Anniversary, of what? I frowned. I don't understand. When I opened them. The room was dark, thick curtains hanging over the glass. Only the faintest traces of morning sunlight filtered through. I jumped out of bed, my heart hammering in my chest. But as I raced around the house, as I saw the closet, half empty, the kitchen devoid of John's trusty skillet and sauces, the driveway without his trusty old Camry, reality slowly melted back to me. 3 years, now. 3 years I'd been living in darkness, reliving his death. Not some horrific accident, some horrible death I couldn't prevent.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
Answered a scam phone call, by Demonstancialone. Hello, this is, Mumble, calling from the IRS. Our records show a discrepancy with your account and you need to settle that payment as soon as possible. I could practically see the script this guy was reading from. I'll need a working credit card number and your social security number. No, I interrupted, your name. I didn't quite catch that. Oh my, whatever could be wrong with my tax return? I've only been blackmailing my employees for sex, that's not considered embezzlement, is it? Ma'am, you will be treated as a hostile party during arrest if you do not cooperate. Oh, please don't take my vast fortune, it's all tied up in gift cards. I wailed. The year of our Lord 2017, I said as dramatically as I could. His end of the line went quiet. That's not funny, he finally said. Prove it to me, he barked. Prove it's 2017. I could hear him breathing erratically on the other side. They promised me I could go right back. If I worked, they said, I have a 10-year loan for God's sake. He was babbling and just sounded glad to hold a conversation with someone. It felt genuine. This was rapidly becoming really creepy. So hell wants you to scam people out of their money? I got up and started pacing. Did Satan declare bankruptcy? The amount of detail was unnerving. He didn't stop or stumble through the whole speech. But I haven't even done anything, they can't keep me here. I'm doing them a favor by working here, they'll owe me. The guy just rambled on like he hadn't even heard me. God, I shoulda got it in writing. I don't know how much time I have left on my contract. Unless. I held my breath. I won't be answering any more unknown numbers, that's for damn sure. I don't know what's more disturbing, the fact that a guy would inflate his lie to such an extreme. Or the possibility that it wasn't a lie.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back out now. Next story's already watching.
The delay on my TV is starting to worry me, by Lily Brutal. Well, I'll start by saying delay is not the correct word. I don't know what the right word is, it seems more that my television is ahead of time. But that's beside the point. I'm writing here because I'm becoming concerned about what I'm seeing. It's been about 5 months since this started, and my TV is just under 8 hours ahead. I turned my TV on, ready to hear what my journey to work would be like the next morning, when a picture of my face appeared. It seems that tomorrow, I go missing. At first it was reported that I was taken into a white windowless van on my way into work. I emailed my manager telling him I wouldn't be in tomorrow, when the news story had another break. The new evidence shows it was possible I was taken from my home. I started packing my bags to get to my sister's house. She only lived a few hours drive away, but as I was heading out the door, the report changed again. It has been 2 hours since I saw the initial report, and apparently at 8:45 a.m. tomorrow, my body would be found, outside of my sister's town.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Don't trust what they say. The fog isn't dangerous, it's what's saving us, by Olave Bacon. Don't trust the local news reports. The fog isn't the dangerous thing that they're telling us. The fog is what's saving us. I may sound crazy, but you have to listen to me. The fog is helping us, not hurting. No one knew that there was anything going on until the short snippets on the news started to appear. And after the first few, it was like a dam broke and the flood of local news reports came flowing in. Man used paint, blood, and feces mixture to repaint entire house. Children report bus driver began to scream obscenities and laugh before crashing bus. Second man skins himself, possibly inspired by first. The news stories were endless, revealing more and more disgusting and depraved ongoings throughout my area. It took about a month, but one day my TV, phone, and strangely even email account were blasted with an emergency alert. This is an emergency broadcast, sent alongside the usual Health Alert Network update system from the CDC. We have reason to believe that the recent disturbing actions and behaviors are the result of exposure to the thick fog that has permeated the region. It is highly suggested that all individuals in the area avoid entering the fog as much as possible. It would be best if all residents would stay within their homes until further notice. Please stay tuned for upcoming information within the next few days. Lady, what the hell are you trying to do? I asked loudly. She let out a throaty groan sound as she turned her gaze towards me, and began to take a few small steps in my direction. Look, lady, I am in no mood for any of this and you need to go. Don't come any closer. I don't want to hurt you. I yelled out as loudly and powerfully as I could, even though at this point I was scared shitless. The woman froze in her tracks, then without a word spun on her heel and ran down the street. Towards the thick growing fog. I'm not really sure, to be honest. How about you come back to my place so that we can get you cleaned up? I extended my hand and she accepted. I don't really remember anything, except for bits of, oh God, why did I do that? She sobbed, and I cautiously put one arm across her shoulders to comfort her. It's okay. None of us have any idea what's going on here. It seems like you're okay for now though, so let's just get back home and then we'll talk about what's next, okay? Once we were safely inside of my living room, I turned to the woman and pointed down the hall to the bathroom. You can go take a shower down there, and I'll leave some clothes that might fit outside of the door. There's already towels in there. I can't remember the last time that I ate, but this smells amazing. She said, sinking down into one of the chairs. I took the seat across from her and tasted my own soup before sliding a bag of saltines towards her. Look, Rachel, I know that this might be difficult, but I need you to tell me the last thing that you remember before. I know, I just feel so helpless. I mean, look at me. Look at my hair. Look at my face. Why did I do this to myself? What happened to my teeth? Rachel stayed at my house for a few nights, but soon brought up returning to her own apartment. I don't think that would be such a good idea. I began, but she interrupted me. What could be worse than this? She asked, gesturing towards the bald patches on her head and her broken front teeth. Look, I'm really not trying to speculate anything here, but don't you find it a bit odd that something happened to you outside of your own apartment, but once you made your way here, further towards and into the fog, you were somehow fixed? Rachel smiled at me softly and shook her head. You know that sounds insane, right? Okay, but then by your assumption, you're saying that the government doesn't want us to be cured of whatever is happening? She asked incredulously. There was nothing left for me to say after that. I had no choice but to watch sadly as she walked out the door. Less than 2 hours after she left, I heard tires squealing on the pavement outside of my house, followed by car doors slamming and shouting. Drive team right, kill team left, go. I was able to make out as I crept to my window. Before they had even exited my neighbor's house, I was already running towards the bathroom laundry basket where Rachel had left her bloodied clothing. I quickly exchanged her old disgusting t-shirt for mine, then laid face down atop her discarded towels. Body, all clear. One voice said, as another shouted, success, moving on. The footsteps thudded away and after a few moments, and a few deep breaths, I allowed myself to sit up. It's only been a few hours since they raided my house, but now I'm seriously convinced.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
My lips had turned as white as paper, and when I raised my hand to wipe over my eyebrows, the short dark hairs came off and fell into the sink below the mirror I was looking into. I shut my eyes and ran my thumb over the other one as well. Now both were gone. I leaned closer to the mirror. My eyes were the same, yet the tiny wrinkles I used to have in their corners had disappeared. When I opened my mouth, I found that my teeth had blended together to form two closed, seamless white rows. I was terrified, to say the least. Confused. It didn't feel real. Was I dreaming this? I rubbed my eyes, only to gasp in shock when I pulled back to find my long, black lashes in my hands. I looked up at the mirror again, the face of a mannequin staring back. Then I fell unconscious. I woke up back in bed. Dana and Michael were sitting by my side. They adopted me at the age of 8 and have shown me nothing but love and doting care throughout the years, but I could never refer to them as mom and dad without feeling incredibly uncomfortable. I had expected them to look scared and worried, but they appeared to be weirdly elated. Dana reached down to the small tray resting on her thighs. It held a wet cloth, a cup of tea and a little plate with some pancakes on it. She grabbed the cloth and gently began dabbing my eyes and forehead with it. When she removed it, I could see that the remaining hairs of my brows and lashes were stuck to it. I slowly sat up in bed. I wanted to say something, ask what was going on, but noticed in horror that I could hardly move my lips. Opening and closing my mouth worked well enough, but I couldn't contort it properly to form words. What? I managed to press out. I obediently took the cup out of her hands and drank a few sips of tea. You're probably very scared right now, he said softly. But don't worry, it'll all be fine. I know it's hard now, but it's all going to be over soon. You'll understand soon enough, he replied, smiling gently as he took out a hairbrush, leaned in and began to run it through my short light brown locks, carefully arranging them into large, orderly curls again. You must be very scared. Trust me though, we'll take care of you. Michael and Dana would continue to keep me inside. In fact, they decreed strict bed rest, which is where they proceeded to keep me. Michael bought me a TV for my room and set it up right in front of my bed so I could see it from where I was resting. Dana would continuously cook my favorite meals and bring them to me. One of them would be by my side almost all day. We would play games or read together. I loved to paint, so Dana carried my little desk with all my equipment on it over to my bedside. She'd even sit still and let me paint her. "Not to me, sweetheart," she replied, leaning in to give me a hug. "I know, baby, I'll miss her too. It's natural, we've been with her for 12 years. Of course we've grown attached. But it'll be worth it, don't you think?" I ended up lying on my back. That's when the strangest feeling overcame me. I slowly opened my eyes. I almost screamed when I saw a face staring down at me, but before any sound could leave my lips, a hand had pressed itself over my mouth, forcing me to stay silent. The face hovering above my own was pale as a sheet. Its chin and nose were unnaturally sharp, its lips and cheeks void of all color. It was so white it almost seemed to shine in the darkness. It was completely hairless, no brows, no eyelashes. It was then that I realized that this other person, this intruder, looked just like me. It was hard to tell at first, but something about them felt male. Maybe it was the shape of his eyes or the size of his hand, which he proceeded to slowly and carefully remove from my mouth. He raised a finger to his lips and I nodded quietly. We stared at each other for a while before he reached out to take my hand. He gently pried it open, turning my palm to face him. He then began to draw onto my skin with his finger. It took him a few tries for me to finally understand that he was writing something. At first a simple line, followed by him stroking over my open palm as if to erase it or something. It tickled a bit, but apart from that, it was almost affectionate. I shook my head and let out a low hum, trying to tell him I didn't get it. He looked up at me and let go of a soft breath. He sounded exhausted. Still, he lowered his head and repeated the motion. I nodded eagerly, pointing at him to communicate that I finally understood. I could still see little apart from the faint glow of the white color of his face in the darkness, but for a second, it almost looked like he was attempting to smile. The corners of his stiff lips were pointing up ever so slightly. "I watch you sleep." As much as this first sentence may have frightened me, I soon understood the necessity of keeping up communication with the man without a face. Ever since then, he's been coming in through the window every night. We talk using my phone now, typing out our messages to each other. He's made it very clear that I'm in grave danger, even though he is still holding off on explaining the details. I asked him if we should call the police, but he seems to be certain that it would only get me into more trouble. Maybe that's because Michael works for the police department, or maybe it's simply because I can't really talk and writing the cops an email doesn't sound too helpful. Instead, we have been planning our escape. Tonight, the man without a face will wait until Michael and Dana are asleep and bring a ladder to my window. How he has managed to climb up here without one in the first place is beyond me, but I don't really care either. By now, I just want out of here. Dana and Michael have been keeping the keys to themselves. I don't know where they're hiding them, but I check the doors and lower windows from time to time when nobody's watching. They're all locked. I'm not sure if they know that I know they're basically holding me captive, but I am certain that if I stay, something will happen to me, something much worse than losing my face. My name is Christine and I can borrow other people's faces. My name is Christine and I don't have a face because a dead girl wants hers back.
You're still tuned to Horror Slop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
Every morning I sit here, looking out into the ocean where the gray sky meets the dark water on the horizon. I wait. Wait to see one of them wash in with the tide, drifting up onto the hard-packed sand. As soon as I see them I run from my position, grabbing them and dragging their limp bodies further up the beach, laying them to rest in the soft sand near the brush-filled dunes. I lay them on their backs, feet facing land and head to the water. their arms stretched out to their sides in a crucifix position. I know I have to work quickly, before they wake up. I've never had the misfortune of seeing it before, but I've been told the stories of what happens if they wake before the ritual is complete. The entire island could be erased in the blink of an eye. Generations of work, my bloodline, all for naught. I'm getting distracted, sorry. The ritual. While in the crucifix position I start the runes. Beginning with each hand and foot, I carve the same sequence going inward towards the body, from the tips of the fingers and toes, moving counterclockwise from the left hand, to the feet, and finishing with the right hand. The work is methodical. My knife moves with a determined precision, honed with 20 years of practice. Their blood flows blue, staining the sands with an almost neon hue. A scent of ammonia lingers with it. When every limb has been carved, I start at the top of the head, moving from the small bump in the middle of their forehead, down toward the chest. They bleed much more when I get to the neck, as one of the runes must cut right across the jugular. Their blood sprays, leaving a shower on the surrounding sand. Some days it mixes with the drizzle of rain, creating a bluish mist that floats across the beach. The preparations are done. I pick up the knife once more, and walk to meet the crashing waves. The final step. My hand dips under the salt water, opening with my palm up. The waves crash in, and as soon as they begin to be pulled back to the sea, I swipe the knife across, letting my own blood flow freely and mix with the water. This is the final offering, the plea to whatever gods rule over the sea, to end this monstrosity and keep us safe. The salt water stings as I bring my hand back up, the cold air adding to the pain. My feet slide across the sand as I walk back to the drifter. Lifting the knife, still dripping with the mix of my blood and salt water, I plunge it into the middle of the drifter's chest, into the diaphragm. When the ritual is done and the last spasms go through their bodies, I grab the can of gasoline and the herbs I keep in a small shack on the beach. I douse the body, setting it alight and throwing the herbs on top. Like sage for cleansing spirits, the bundle of lavender and catnip smolders, sending wisps of their scent through the air. With this, the drifter is cleansed and the island safe once more. I make my way to the village square, heading into the courthouse at the other end. Briggs, our mayor, is waiting for my daily report. He looks up from the papers he's signing as I walk into the room. We'll certainly need to keep an eye on it. The records show that more show up preceding times of trouble. The earliest we have on record preceded the Black Plague. They were at an average of 2 drifters per day, with the highest number being 5 washing up at once. Your post was manned by 5 watchers around the clock, making sure none went uncleansed. We must be vigilant, make sure this doesn't become a problem like then. As of yet, there's no way to tell. We simply must pay attention. Find someone from the village that shows promise, take them to be trained. You may need help. He answered, waving me off. I got up to walk out. Raleigh? I turned back, giving him a questioning look. He dug around in his desk drawer before withdrawing a long, thin blade in a black scabbard. He pulled the blade out of the sheath by a few inches, showing me a startlingly pristine edge with the runes I use inscribed on it. He sheathed it again and handed it over to me. This has been handed down from elder to elder. If the time comes when there are too many, use this. It allows the ritual to be bypassed. Raleigh. Raleigh. Vale, one of the village teenagers. She was shouting for me in a panicked voice, fear rising to overtake any other emotion. Quick! You have to go to the shore. What's going on? I stopped her as she ran up, panting for breath. She leaned over and grabbed her knees, gasping. Another one. A drifter, some of the kids were playing in the water and it washed up, she wheezed. It happened in slow motion. The drifter's eyes opened. Their unearthly green hue, like emeralds reflecting a blue sea, shined through the haze. I saw the sharp teeth bare themselves and the hands reach for the nearest child. Long claws tore skin and red blood mixed with ocean spray. I heard the boy scream in pain before turning to a low gurgle as blood filled his throat instead. I wasn't thinking. Instinct took over and I drew the blade I had just been given. The runes reflected the gray sky, the sharp edge of the blade shining like the sea. I jumped at the drifter and plunged the blade between its neck and shoulder, stabbing downward through the chest and into the gut. It let out a high screech and the wind around picked up, intense howling echoing the drifter's cry. The ocean churned in response, sea foam churning into madness where calm, small waves were before. "Fucking die!" I screamed. I plunged my hand down into the wound, covering it in blood and painting my face with it. I withdrew the sword, quickly slicing my palm and dipping it into an incoming wave. The drifter screamed again. Clouds moved in, erasing any light that was left. The weather turned from a gray morning to a small hurricane in moments. I knew this had to end quickly. I didn't know that it would only get worse from there. 10.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
I kept having the same nightmare when I moved out of my parents' house. Now I Know Why, by Sam Haysom. From Fred Dodsworth. Mom. And I do miss you guys. I miss you, and Jim, and the dogs. I'd love to come back and visit ASAP, if I'm honest, but I made a promise with myself that I wouldn't come home for the first 6 weeks. So I could settle in. I'm going to try and stick to that. But no, I'm being stupid. Why even get worked up about it? It'll get better. Homesickness always goes away in the end. Love you and speak soon. Fred. From Fred Dodsworth. I don't know if it's the tiredness or the anxiety, but my mind keeps playing tricks on me, too. Stupid stuff. Like last night, for instance, I woke up at 3 a.m. from another nightmare. Leaned over to switch on my lamp to get some light in, and the first thing my eyes were drawn to once I could see again was the cupboard in my room. The door of the cupboard. See, the thing is, I remember that cupboard door being shut last night, when I went to bed. Fully closed. I'm certain of it. We ended up chatting for hours. I don't know if it was because we were the only two awake, or because we both felt like crap, but we really opened up to each other. I told her about my homesickness and my nightmares, and she told me about her depression. She's had it since she was a teenager, apparently. She's on meds, but it's particularly bad at the moment. Probably because of all the changes in her life. Mom. Okay. Right. Here goes. Sorry I'm a bit all over the place, but I ended up going out with the people on my corridor and I guess I had a bit too much to drink. I wasn't planning on it, Mom, but as soon as I started well, I guess this homesickness is a little worse than I thought it was, because I didn't want to stop. I just kept going. I must still be a bit drunk, too, because I keep glancing up at the cupboard as I'm writing this, watching it out of the corner of my eye, and I swear I can. The next thing I remember is lying on my back, staring up at the ceiling. The room spinning around me. It was dark, and I could hear laughter in the distance. Laughter and screams. I didn't know if I was awake or dreaming, but it felt real. That was the thing. My mouth was dry and tacky, and my throat burned with the aftertaste of tequila. My head ached. In the dream, that's what I know it was. Now, Mum, just a dream. I decided I needed some water. Something to take the taste in my mouth away. Only as I leaned over to reach for the glass on my bedside table, I heard another noise. something on the far side of my room. I remember sitting up in bed, squinting. I've got those blackout blinds on my window and they only let in the tiniest bit of moonlight, so the room was almost pitch black. I could make out faint shapes, but not much else. A soft scratching sound. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Coming from the direction of the cupboard. I'm writing this now with the lights on, but even the memory of that noise creeps me out. It sounded so real, Mum. Like there was an animal in my cupboard, trying to get out. In fact, the only reason I know for sure that it wasn't real, that it really was just a dream, was because of what happened next. What happened after? In the dream I was sitting up, staring into the darkness, and I could just make out the edge of the cupboard door. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it up in my throat. I couldn't move. And as I stared at the cupboard, as I listened to the scritch, scritch, scritching going on and on, I heard something else, too. A voice. A voice on the other side of the cupboard door, whispering my name. Freddy. The last thing I remember before I woke was the cupboard door beginning to creak open. And when I sat down at this desk, I noticed the cupboard door was open again. Only a crack. It's like that thing's doing its best to scare the shit out of me, because I could have sworn I shut it before I went out drinking last night. Maybe the mechanism needs fixing or something. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I just heard the others come back, and I think I'll go and chat to them for a bit. If I sit in the silence of my room any longer, I'm going to lose it. October 11th, 2019. I told Fiona about the cupboard, Mom. I had to. It's been getting to me so much over the past week I've barely slept at all. Each day feels like a blur. I've missed lectures, I've missed seminars, It's just what the fuck am I supposed to tell people? That there's something scratching in my cupboard and whispering my name at night, and even though it started off as a nightmare I can no longer tell when I'm fucking dreaming and when I'm awake. What would people say if I told them that, exactly? They'd think I was crazy. They'd think I'm losing it. I stood back in the doorway, like a little kid, and I asked Fiona to check inside it because I felt like I was going to lose my fucking mind if I heard those noises one more time. Well, Fiona said after a moment. You're not going to win any prizes for tidiness anytime soon, but I can't see any rats. Nothing else. From Fred Dodsworth. Right now it's the middle of the day, and it's sunny outside. My blinds are open and the light's coming in. My head feels okay. The cupboard's quiet. If something crawls out of that cupboard one night and gets me while I'm sleeping, will anybody miss me as much as you? Ah, but the sun's on my face. I can feel it as I type. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of those long, weekend dog walks we used to take with Jim. At the beginning of the summer. The 2 dogs, and the 3 of us. Exploring the new forest with the sun on our faces. October 15th, 2019. To Cynthia Dodsworth. I can't do this anymore. I can't. It's in my fucking head. It's 3 a.m. and I'm in bed, the lights are on, and I'm playing music, loud. The voice from the cupboard. Oh Jesus, I'm going to open the door. It's you, Mom. The trunk. It was all in the trunk. When I finally tugged that cupboard door open, there was no monster on the other side. There were only clothes, and shoes, and this trunk. The scratching was coming from inside the trunk. But when I finally opened it, I didn't see a monster in there. No mice, or rats. Just photos. I don't understand. Fuck, how am I supposed to read over all this noise? Cynthia with Freddy, aged 6, read the caption on the back. / She'd only been dead 2 weeks when I came to uni. It was a car accident. Sudden. I remember that now. With the help of my counselor, who I've been seeing for the past 5 months, I've remembered a lot. I remember how Jim, my stepdad, tried to stop me from going to uni at all. Said he didn't think it was a good idea. Told me to think about taking a year out instead. Give myself time to grieve. I told him I was fine, even though I didn't feel it. Even though I felt like my fucking head was tethered to my body like a balloon. I'm not going to damage myself anymore. When my mum died, I took everything I had, all my feelings, and memories, and locked them away in a trunk. But you can't keep stuff like that locked up forever. The university agreed to let me defer my place, so this year I'm taking time to grieve. I'm taking time to talk with my counselor, and walk the dogs with Jim. It's still cold out, but every now and then, on the better days, the sun will push its way through the clouds and touch the skin of my face. Make me feel warm again. I tell her about my day, and about what I've been doing. I tell her about Jim, and the dogs. I tell her I love her. And even though she isn't here anymore, at least not in person, I like to think that somewhere, somehow, she's listening.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse. In the best way.
Day 6. OMG. My inbox has been blowing up. I know you all love me so much, and I love you too, bitches, but I've been way too busy to respond. Okay, so here's the deal. I got 2 part-time jobs. One is a waitress, yes, free food, and the other is at a gym, yes, free membership. I've also met with my new agent who is trying to find me some acting jobs. OMG, I am freaking out. Everything here is so crazy and new. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried about money. If y'all feel like Venmoing me a little something, you know I'd be forever grateful. Okay, I need to go to sleep now, I feel exhausted. Day 7. I have never lived in an apartment before, and let me tell you it's freaking noisy. I swear the people above me have like 6 kids or something, because all I heard is thump, thump, bang. All day long. And the people next to me must love crappy rap music, because they blast it night and day. At least I'm not in my apartment very much to hear it. Day 8. Y'all been hearing about this virus? People around here have been talking, but I think it's just overhyped. Special shout out to LoveBear13132551 for the super sweet donation. And others, too. My fans are the best. Day 10. Y'all, I've got an audition tomorrow. It's just a small role in a commercial, but I'm gonna nail it, you know it. I'll keep you updated. Loves. Day 12. Wow, so people are getting real nervous about this virus. I just heard the schools are closing. Where was a damn virus when I was in school, right? Hahaha, don't worry, y'all. I ain't worried. Day 15. So the restaurant and the gym I was working at have closed. And they are telling us we need to stay home. Wow, WTF. What am I gonna do in this tiny ass apartment? I ran to the store today, but it was slim pickings. I was able to get a box of cereal, but no milk. I got some pasta, but no sauce. And I got a few cans of soup. It's not even the lower sodium kind. Ugh. Day 18. This crappy rap music from next door is actually growing on me. The bass is great, but they must have turned it down, because it sounds softer today. The kids upstairs aren't thumping around as much either, maybe I'm losing my hearing. Day 20. I'm really wishing I had bothered to get damn Wi-Fi in my apartment. I was mooching off the restaurant downstairs, but it looks like they have officially closed. I only have so much data on my phone and I never even bothered to bring a TV. Anyone got suggestions for how to stay busy? I'm going crazy. Day 30. No joke, I feel like I'm losing it a little. Today I was mindlessly walking back and forth in my apartment, when my foot hit the wall at 8 steps instead of 9. I tried again, over and over, but I could only get to 8 steps. It's weird, maybe my feet are getting bigger. I can't afford to buy all new shoes. Day 32. So I'm hearing these noises at night and not the normal, noisy neighbors in an apartment noises, but like, grinding? Like heavy furniture being moved. I also can't hear my neighbors as well. I know that most people would say that's a plus, but TBH I kind of felt like I wasn't so alone when I could hear them. Ugh. Do I sound crazy? Day 40. Holy shit, y'all, I have the best MOM. She shipped me a package with some awesome goodies and food. Thank you, Mommy, I love you. Day 45. My package arrived. I should be super excited, but something really weird happened today. When I opened my apartment door to grab the box, the door wouldn't open all the way, like it was stuck on something. I shimmied the box in and closed the door, planning to inspect it after I opened the box. Later when I went to examine the door I noticed, this sounds crazy, but the door hinge is gone, like the wall is now where the door hinge used to be. I tried to open the door again, but it won't open at all anymore. That's crazy, right? I'm going to try to call the superintendent today. Day 49. I awoke to the grinding noises again. This time I fucking saw the walls moving. They have started covering my window now. As soon as I saw that I broke the glass and started screaming outside. But no one is there. I cut my hand. It really hurts. Please, please, if you're reading this, help me. Day 50. I spent so much time kicking, hitting, and trying to break down the walls. I fucked my foot up. My hands hurt, but still my room shrinks. I can only manage 5 steps from one side to the other. I scream all day and night, until I am hoarse, but no one hears. Please, someone send help. Please. The top of my phone is gone. I can type but I can't see the light is gone, it is dark. My battery will die soon, will I die too? Help help.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
So you turn around as you fly off and see the whole of the earth there in your own little window. And you realize, when you look at the sphere of it, that on that sphere is and was everything that is and that has ever happened, and every man and woman and child, and that all the wars and loves and songs and stories that ever were fought and cherished and sung and told right there, on that little blue marble that you can almost hold between your fingertips, so small it is. I was born and was a child there, right by that ocean, and I became a man in a town 1,200 miles away, a distance that from up here represents not more than an inch. It is surreal. Every time I am out here among the stars I feel the same smallness that is both awesome and terrible in equal measure. An anomaly? A gravitational anomaly, yes. And the source of it is right out there, out past the orbit of Jupiter. He'd pulled up a photograph, and on it you could see the starlight pulled into smears and streaks indicative of a gravitational lens, the bending of space and time. We don't know yet what it is. That's what you're going to find out for us, if you want the job. It's amazing, isn't it? Frances, a mission specialist on her 4th flight, said, when finally we arrived at the doorstep of the thing. I joined her at the window and together we stared out at it, the anomaly, a shifting weight of mass a few million more miles off, around which starlight from behind curved and oozed and slipped. I concurred. Yes, it is. Where do you think it came from? Doesn't mean it didn't come from somewhere. I concurred again. I stopped for a moment with that consideration. I had to admit it hadn't yet crossed my mind, but after nearly a full day of witnessing the heaving and the writhing and the twisting of what laid in front of me, I was willing to believe in the existence of more than the textbook standard phenomenons of gravity. I flew over to the window yet again. So, what's our next move, Cap? Another specialist, a 10-year vet by the name of Jones, had said. You want to dive into that thing? We have no idea what the hell lies on the other side, Jones. Our orders are to observe and collect data for research. He shrugged, and for a time the crew merely discussed the implications of the discovery. As we did, though, we began drifting forward. It was difficult to notice at first, as the distances involved and the lack of stationary objects nearby made it impossible to eyeball. But the equipment noticed it, and no sooner did we hear the faint beeping than the chariot picked up more and more speed. The hell's going on? Are we moving? I don't know. Pilot Fowler was frantically scrambling over the controls. It's not me, sir. Is that thing pulling us in? Alright, everyone, calm down. We'll figure this out. Fowler, can you angle the thrusters away from the direction of movement? He did, and a silent distress settled over the crew as Chariot flew into the anomaly. And then the ship began to rumble, and to shake, and to groan, and the blue light brightened enveloped us whole. Hello. There was no answer. Fowler. Ruger. Another flash of blue. It was bright, so exceedingly bright, in fact, that I couldn't see a thing, or think, and it filled up the whole of the cosmos from where I sat, and it lingered. On our side of the wormhole the pulse had merely been that, a heartbeat, a flash of light, and not more than an instant of time had been taken up by it. But here it stayed active like the supernova of a star, and then I could feel the heat of the light, and it washed over me in waves. A birthday party. A ringing hallway bell. Playing in the mud. A first kiss, a mountaintop snowfall, a sunset on the beach. What does this thing want? There is a pause. For a fleeting moment the pain stops, and so too does the harvesting. But only for that moment, and when it is over the process begins again. And the memories it finds begin to focus. And my eyes roll back. Flash. A memory of a conversation is summoned. It is about nothing, an old coworker discussing expense reports with me. The light loses interest in swift order, and then it moves on. Flash. An earlier memory, now. Another conversation. I'm speaking with my mother. I'm looking up at her, in the kitchen with oven mitts on, and she's telling me to wash up for supper. She speaks slowly and simply. I must be what, 10? Younger? The light lingers a bit here, and then moves on. Flash. Elementary school. Or earlier. Maybe kindergarten. We're learning penmanship today. I look down at my paper and see the alphabet scribbled there, in loops and scratches. The light lingers here, too, for a while. And then the memory fades. Another pause. And then another memory comes up. A high school buddy of mine, Greg Rickey, runs up to me after a football game and says the word, food. Food? I say. Flash. Melissa looks down at the note I'd passed her 3 days before prom, and says, yes. Oh, okay. Good. Okay. What kind of food? Flash. Flash. My mother, after watching the dog piss on the floor, shouts, no. Flash. A bouncing dodgeball in the high school gym. Another image of lightning, and one of rippling air on pavement in the midst of a midsummer heat wave. Okay, give me a second. A hot ball of energy. Like a star. The image of the sun that popped up in my own head as I uttered the word gave the light some pause. Then I felt a force of power. It stung. Flash. Yes. Melissa says it yet again. A star, for food. Okay. How dash. Flash. An image of an armadillo from a nature documentary. It curls tightly into a ball, and the memory fades. Flash. Flash. Mom shouts again. No. Flash. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you're hungry for food, and you eat stars by what, curling onto them? What the fuck is this? A new image. It's shocking, and it's dark. I see the gates of a concentration camp, and a pile of corpses, and an inmate there gripping the bars of the fence. She's emaciated and desperate, but too sick, even, to cry for help. Her clothes hang off her limbs in excess. It is the saddest image I've ever seen. What the F fuck was that? Flash. Flash. Every time the images switched I saw a new scene as horrible as the last. Okay. Okay, you're starving. Is that right? Flash. I'm sorry. I don't know how to help you. An image of bones. Flash. Wait. This already happened, didn't it? I was afraid to ask the next inevitable question, but too curious not to. What are you? A new image entered my mind, this time, like the last, from the light, and not from myself. I saw a memory of a dream playing out before me. A fleet of star ships, arrayed up in a concave formation for battle, firing lancing spears of energy into a wormhole. Then the blue light spilled on through it, followed in turn by a mass of alien metal. The ships ramped up the rate of fire, and the intensity of it, but they couldn't harm the thing coming through, or so much as slow it down. Slowly, and one by one, as it became clear the advance of the machine could not be stopped, the ships broke formation and began to flee. But they weren't fast enough. The machine, after a time, gained the hot side of the gate and poured on through. With pulsing blasts of light entire ships disintegrated to ash and nothing more. A capital ship in the formation's middlemost section fired a round of some new form of fire, and the machine took the hit with a wound, but not even that did appreciably more than scratch an arm of the thing. That ship met a swift fate like the others. A scene from the planet from which those ships had hailed. There are dead things. Alien corpses, cities aflame, the end of the world. The mighty shadow of an eclipse falls across the scene, and then there is darkness. Flash. The star is no more. All that now remains in the grasp of the machine is a sphere of hot space. The machine spills its blue light to the depths of the abyss in search of other things to devour. Flash. Another world destroyed. There are starships splintered in orbit, lifeless and useless, and parts of their hulls rammed into the planet's backside. Their attempt to stop the machine has ended in disaster. Flash. The machine gathers those parts and adds them to its mass. Over unspeakable units of time and countless such battles, it has grown large. Too large, in fact, to sustain itself. Ever it searches for more food. Flash. Parts of the machine's limbs have gone dark. There is not enough energy, enough food, to feed the whole of its mass. It needs more. I can feel its hunger, and I can feel the growth of it. Flash. No. No. Fuck you. You can't have that. You can't take that. I live there. I manage to say, weakly, stop. But inside my mind I resist with effort. I pull up my own memories now, to throw in its face. To slow it down. Okay. Oh, hey, you talked to Brad earlier. He's Ioria Galvkas, DGA 09232384. I flinched. Mom yelled, no. And the digging begins again. Data. Mountains of it to be poured over. A look at the sun from a Pacific side beach. The machine tastes the warmth of it. Its hunger roars, but I push back harder. Everything I have. What else? What else do I have? My name. I have my name. Darren Gray. Darren Gray. Darren Gray. Darren Grastest Faga. Flash. A new image. I see the sun now, from the window of the Warhorse chariot. And then. Flash. Flash. Another image of the sun, white and alone. The sun again. Flash. Where? Flash. Danny Green. Danny Green. Danny Green. Danny Green. Flash. My father rummaged through the kitchen, phone in one hand. He muted it with the other. Anyone seen my pen? He said. Danny Green, Danny Green, Danny Green, Danny Green. Sir. Never mind, my father had said. I found it. Sir. Captain. I opened my eyes. It was Frances. And she'd been crying. What dash? Sir. I've been calling you. I said to stay out of the light. I looked around the cabin. The power was on. The crew was here. All of them were getting up off the floor, and all of them stared up at me with confusion and with concern. I don't know. She said. We sent that signal into that wormhole thing, and then this weird blue light just poured out of it, and we all hit the deck, but dash, she looked around. But you didn't. And you had this look on your face, like you were in this trance, and I don't know. I thought you were dead. Saw what, sir? Anything at all. There was something in the light. I saw this machine in there, and it dash, I stopped. I was losing them. No. No. We need to leave. Now. I don't need water, Baker. I shook him off and continued loading. Fowler. On the seat. Now. Let's go. I felt a slamming weight in my midsection, and down I went, with Ruger on top of me. Get the fuck off me. I thrashed and threw all my weight against his. He buckled, slightly, and then turned and said, Baker. A little hand here. Baker piled on, and then Jones, and against their combined weight I didn't stand a chance. They hauled me to my feet and began dragging me off to the back of the SH. Guys. It was Frances' voice. We stopped, and we looked up, and she was pointing out the window. Towards the anomaly. Look. We did. Instantly I felt 3 pairs of hands loosen up their grips. I fell to the floor. What the fuck is that? I wiped a trail of blood from my nose and said, it's here. Baker, can we raise NASA from here? I don't know. I can try, B-dash. Hey! I shouted. Everyone calm down and strap in. Now. Fowler, plot a course for home. Shit. Sir. Shit. The hell was that? It's shooting at us. That's what that was. But the ship was too slow. I knew it. Fowler knew it. Baker and Frances and Jones and Ruger, they knew it, too. And we shared the intuition, even as we fled, and said not a word about it. And Ruger, not me, responded. We know it is. He said. Sheer gravity of that thing is pulling us in. Ship ain't fast enough, gentlemen. Orders, sir. Turn it around. What? Turn the ship around. Fly towards it. If we time it just right, dash. Then we can take a hit of that blue laser right inside the firing chamber. A hush fell over the crew. They knew what this was, a call to spend their lives in the service of mankind. I looked out at the machine. We had 15 minutes, maybe less, before the full form of its mass exited the wormhole. And so we had just as much time to act. Do it, Fowler. Baker spoke up. It's the right call. We're not escaping, might as well take it out with us. It's the right call, Captain. You all ready to die today, lady and gents? For king and country. I put a hand to his shoulder and said, you did great, son. Darren Bradford Gray, commander of the USS Warhorse Chariot. Other satellites have been purposed with examining the area of the incident. As of early August, they have spotted numerous pieces of floating metal, most of which will either join the asteroid belt or fall into the surface of Jupiter, and an excessive amount of radiation, seemingly indicative of a collapsing gravitational event. Closer inspection has revealed that the anomaly Warhorse Chariot was initially dispatched in secret to inspect has ceased to exist. Some private telescope owners, however, have reported an unidentified blue light flashing in pulses from exactly this region. NASA has made no official comment as of this time. Facebook.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in the coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
I saved my best stories for the overnight trips we made in Algonquin Park, for non-Canadians, it's a massive park in the middle of Ontario, spanning nearly 8,000 square kilometers, when days would be spent canoeing on pristine lakes and nights would be spent around the fire, singing and making s'mores and being as rowdy as the only people within miles could be. Once the kids had quieted down, I told them stories of a stalker in the woods with a face so horrifying it paralyzed all of its victims in fear, or the group of campers who decided to spend a night across the lake from an abandoned, or was it, insane asylum. Movement at the very top of the cliffs caught my eye. There was a small light bobbing along the peak. At first I thought it was a star, but it was larger and gave off a golden glow. It slowly moved back and forth in a small arc. As I sat up and watched it, another appeared next to it, bobbing along the top of the cliff. Then another. And another. And a few more. My stomach dropped into my feet. I grabbed my bag and pulled my digital camera out, then focused it on the little glowing orbs and used the zoom function. I counted them. And then I counted again. In a flash I was up and running to the tents. Hey guys. Wake up. We gotta go. There was movement in the tents, and then I had 7 confused heads looking out at me. My co-counselor wore a mixture of concern and pure anger. I hate to do this, I continued, but the clouds are looking really threatening. There's a big rainstorm coming in. If we get caught in it, it's going to ruin our trip. The campers groaned. Can't we just go in the morning? No. I shouted, my voice echoing across the lake. I lowered it. Come on, let's get packed up and go. I'll tell you a story along the way. I smiled, though I could feel my lips quivering. It's my best one. For the leader, though, there was no such luxury. He moved forward blindly, feeling along the cliff with his free arm, though his skin was so numb he could barely feel anything. As the path wound back again, he made a misstep and lost his footing, just as a gust of wind blasted his back. He desperately grasped for the hold, but his frozen fingers couldn't get anything. With a terrified scream, he slipped off the cliffs and fell into the icy black lake. As hard as they tried, the cliffs were unforgiving. The remaining men fell down to 4. Then 3. And 2. And then there was just one left, who legend says cursed the earth as his legs slipped and he plunged hundreds of feet down, his lantern the last one to be extinguished. As the story ended, leaving the campers in an eerie silence, I saw lights up ahead. A wave of relief poured over me. We picked up the pace and found the ranger station bursting with activity, with a half-dozen people running around, loading up trucks and shouting into radios. The wind was beginning to really pick up, and I heard thunder in the distance. Hey! You kids! A large, burly man with a full beard and mustache ran up to us. Get in the trucks. We don't have much time. Didn't you hear? Another gust of wind. Huge storm systems heading right for us. Already been tornadoes touched down. We're getting everyone out of here. Let's go. I nodded and leaned against her. Laura had heard the traveler's story before, and she knew that I'd left out a key bit of information. The lights were real, but they were never random. If they were shining, bobbing back and forth, swinging in a small arc, it was because they had a message. A warning.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I did it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what Stern made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same that crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.